We are live. We are live. Welcome to PATC College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. If you want to support the channel through a donation, hit the $, make a super chat comment, and we'll post it and talk about it as soon as possible. Welcome into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend. In the comments or with your phone calls later in the show, welcome to PATC Lunchtime Live Show. We've said this before. If you like the content, if you like this Rebel Outpost National College Football channel, you got to subscribe. You got to get yourself notified, have your notifications on, because we can come up live at any time. And I'm talking any time. Welcome on in. I think this show is going to be shorter than normal. Probably not going to go over 2 hours. Might do an hour and a half. We're primarily focusing on the 2026 Gold Rush. The great Gold Rush of 2026. We coined that phrase a long time ago at the beginning of this channel in August of 2022. The Great Gold Rush of 2026, which is one of the great motivations of this huge realignment, all these changes that are going on in college football, college sports. The great gold rush of 2026. The playoffs. What is it going to look like? But even more importantly, how is the money going to be distributed among all the college football programs? In FBS, all of FBS, there is a term. It's going to get ugly. In fact, it's already getting ugly. The Great Gold Rush is already getting ugly. We're going to talk about this in our show. Man, I love those drums. Penn State is in the house. Thank you, Carson. I appreciate your generosity. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you so very much. Look, I saw that Ransom, yes, he's coming back for the Buckeyes. I saw that early peak memory, Jared Jones. I did see that. Before I get on to thank everybody who's come in at the start of the show, just want to lay down what we're talking about here today. Yahoo Sports, Ross Gellinger put out an article. We're going to go through the article. We provide a link in the description box. You can read the whole thing after the live show is over. We're going to break it down. But it doesn't, look, there's going to be a lot of pushing and shoving going to the great gold rush of 2026. We've been warning everybody. Everybody's trying to best position themselves to get the best scoop of gold coming out of the gold mine, right? When people talk about Power 2, P2, when they talk about it in the chat or when they talk about it in the phone calls, I always say, what do you mean by P2? Everybody has their different definitions of P2, the creation of this Power 2, the SEC in the Big Ten. I happen to believe there is a P2, but not in the same realm as other people have described it. I don't think a P2 is going to cut off playoff access for the ACC, the Big 12. I don't even think that playoff access is going to be cut away from the G5 in 2026. It could happen. We don't know what's going to happen. But I believe, and you're going to see it in the article, I think there's an indication there that the G5 has already made a deal. With the Big 12, with the ACC, with the Big 10, with the SEC. I've already made a deal to make sure, or at least to increase their chances to have playoff access from 2026 and beyond. We're going to get to that in the article. It doesn't say it in the article, but I think there's a strong indication, a strong clue that is what's happened. But it's not just that. The battle. SMU, the title of the show, SMU, is the canary in the gold mine. What's going to happen with SMU here in 2025 is just an example of the battle that's being waged. It sounds like SMU is not going to get the same amount of money, playoff distribution, as they thought. They're not going to get the same amount of money in Autonomy 4 playoff distribution as a Cincinnati, as a BYU, as a California Stanford as they went into the ACC. SMU is in Autonomy 4 conference, but they're not being looked at yet as an Autonomy 4 school. Not in 2024, not in 2025. But the battle is waging everywhere. The G5 drawbridge for the FCS schools to get into a G5 conference, that drawbridge is being pulled up. Instead of costing you $5,000 to potentially get into a G5 conference, it's costing you $5 million. Delaware, they're moving on up. They're moving on up into the Conference USA, but it's costing them $5 million. And Delaware may not. Now, they don't go into Conference USA until 2025. For the 2025 playoffs, I got a feeling that Delaware is not going to get the same amount as distribution money as a Tulane, as a UTSA, as a Nevada. Go right down the list. I'm sorry. I don't mean those schools. But anyways, I do mean those schools, but I meant to give better examples. Delaware doesn't look like they're probably going to get the same amount of distribution money as the other G5 schools. Now, that's not the only battle being waged. There's probably going to be a battle waged between the SEC, the Big Ten, versus the ACC and the Big 12. This is what I call Power 2. They're going to push their weight around. The SEC and the Big Ten, a lot of elbows are going to be thrown. I am not saying here on January 5th, 2024, I am not saying that a Big 12 school is not going to get the same amount of playoff distribution money that a Big 10 school will or an SEC school will. But there is that potential for it to happen. This is where the battle is being waged. Remember, there's like 400, I've heard all sorts of money. The playoff money, this is the last year now. This was the last year of the 4-team invitational. 450, 460, 470, 480, whatever that number is, being distributed among all the FBS schools. 80% of that money goes to the Power 5 conferences. 20% of that money went to the G5 conferences. And it went in equal blocks. So the Pac-12 received the same money as the SEC, as the Big 12, ACC, Big 10. It did not matter how many teams were in your conference. You had the same amount of money going to each school. So the larger conferences who had more members, those members got a little bit less than the smaller conferences because the money wasn't distributed equally to each team, to each program. It was distributed equally to each conference. That's going to change. That's obviously going to change. The Big Ten and the SEC, Big Ten now has 18 schools, SEC has 16 schools. They're probably going to be a higher number by 2026, the great gold rush. You're not going to have equal blocks of money going to each conference. It's going to be to each school. However, that might not even happen. It might be where the Big Ten and the SEC schools want a little bit more than the Big 12 and the ACC schools. They might say, look, we bring the more eyeballs into, just like the Big 12 and the SEC are determined to get more money than the G5 schools. That P2, that Big 10, that SEC, they might go to war over this. I don't know for sure. Nobody knows. But we're going to be learning about this more and more as the days and weeks go on. Don't quite know where all the battles are going to be waged. But they're going to be waged because that 450, 460, whatever $1 million pot that is, the pot of gold is going to go well above $1 billion. It could reach $2 billion. Now, the market is tight. The media market is tight. It sounds like it's not going as good as the college football playoff managers wanted it to go for when it comes to bidding on the next playoff format where there's going to be 11 playoff games each year. But we just got a couple reports saying, first of all, they might have it to where whoever gets part of the bid has the ability to make sure they get a championship game or a semifinal game years down the road. So it's making it more attractive to potential media partners when it comes to the playoffs. Also, we got a report that Fox Sports is going to go big on getting as much of the playoffs content as possible. They're probably willing to pay out the big money. We shall see. ESPN just did an 8-year, $900 million deal with all the NCAA championships, almost all of them. That doesn't have to do with men's basketball, of course, or college football. That went up, that whole bundle went up 220% increase in value. I think at least, maybe I'm going to be wrong on this, but I think at least the total package for each year is going to be over $1.5 billion. But I think we're going to get close to $2 billion. Now imagine that pot of gold, the great 2026 gold rush. We've been talking about it. We've been talking about it every single month for 2 years, almost 2 years, here at Peek Around the Corner. SMU seems like they are the first casualty of the gold rush. Now, if we go into this article, SMU will probably, if there is an ACC in 2027, we don't know if that's going to happen. But at least in 2026, I think, if the ACC still exists to where people consider them an autonomy conference, I do believe that to be the case. SMU will have probably be considered an autonomy for a conference, and they will receive the same distribution as all the new schools into the autonomy conferences, as all, the same distribution of all the autonomy for conference schools. But in 2024, 2025, it doesn't look like they're going to get the money that they thought they were going to get. Remember, SMU is already forfeiting, 7, 8, 9 years of ACC media money. Remember that? And I said, well, this is a good deal for SMU because they're going to get $6 million. They're going to get $6 million in 2024, 2025 playoffs. That's the baseline level. You get more if you make the playoffs. And if you advance in the playoffs, but just being an autonomy school, SMU is going to get $6 million instead of getting the $1 million as a G5 school. You're going to get $6 million. And that's about as much money, more money than they get in AAC media revenue, TV revenue. So SMU, while they're going to be way behind the other ACC schools, at least they're going to be getting the same amount of money if going into the ACC as if they were in the AAC. But now that's not even true. It doesn't seem to be true because they're not going to get paid. SMU is not going to get paid as a autonomy for school in 2024, 2025, even though they are an autonomy for a conference. And this could probably happen with Delaware, Kennesaw State, maybe Sam Houston. I don't know if in the G5 realm where they might not get paid the exact same amount of money as the other G5 schools. We're going to go through the article. The article, of course, does a way better job of explaining it than I do, which is obvious. But let me go through, let me say thanks to everybody that's come into the studio at the beginning of the show. It's going to be Craig Kirsch, and a G5 school needs to be in the top 15 spot. Can't have another Liberty every year. Well, I don't know about that. I do not know about that. SMU is the ugly girl in the room looking for a date. I think this is going to affect more than SMU. Jared Jones is in the house. Expedition Greg, Alan Tran, Kyle Visser, Clinton Moses, Hagen is in the house. Two Masters in the house. Jared Jones, Greg about going pro. Don't know what that means. Thanks for all coming in the house. Let's get into the article. Let's get into the article. Sources. Ross Dellinger, Yahoo Sports. Again, we provide a link in the description. You can read the whole article. Sources, college football playoffs may withhold added revenue from SMU despite Power 5 move. This is why we called the show SMU is the canary in the gold mine. They're going to be the first casualty, temporary casualty, in the battle that's going to be waged when it comes to getting yourself in the best spot in the gold rush of 2026. Houston. Inside a hotel boardroom Monday, a few hours before Washington meets Michigan in the national championship game, leaders of the college football playoff will gather to rubber stamp a few important items. They are expected to formally approve format changes to the expanded playoff in light of the dissolution of the Pac-12, moving what's termed a 5+7 format that features 5 automatic qualifying spots for conference champions and 7 at-large spots for the next highest ranked teams. The previous format was 6+6, and they are also expected to adopt a policy requiring a league to have at least 8 members to be eligible to earn an automatic qualifying spot in the playoff. Now, before we go on to the rest of the article, I want to talk about these two items. We're going from a 6+6 to a 5+7, and we are going to a requirement of at least 8 members to be eligible to earn an automatic qualifying playoff spot. These are 2 new items. It's going to be voted on, rubber stamped, it's going to get done. The deals have been made. Cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger. This is what I believe what has happened. It was decided by the 10 FBS commissioners and Notre Dame that 6+6 format was decided. Everybody had to vote yes on it. Remember? To go from 4-team to a 12-team playoff, it needed to be a unanimous vote. It went from 4-team invitational to a 12-team invitational, 12-team playoff, 6 at-large bids, 6 automatic berths, with the top 6 conference champions going into the playoffs. Which means that there would be a G5 conference champion going into every playoff. That has changed. It's going to be changed from 6+6 to 5+7. For that to occur, for them to rubber stamp this, for them to vote on this, unanimous vote of 6+6 to a 5+7, 5 top-ranked conference champions and 7 at-large berths. For that to happen, they needed everybody's vote. All 10 commissioners in Notre Dame. Obviously, Well, now it's 9 FBS conferences in Notre Dame. Obviously, Notre Dame would be for it. You're going from 6 at-large bids to 7 at-large bids. The Autonomy 4 conferences not going to have a problem with the change. So what is in it for the G5 conferences to go from 6 top-ranked conference champions to 5? What are they getting out of this deal? They could have held firm. We could be looking at a playoff of 2024 and 2025. We could be looking at those 2 years where there's going to be at least 2 G5 schools in the playoffs. And I'm sorry, but that's a whole lot of money. More money going to the G5 schools. What is in it for those 5 commissioners? The Mountain West, the AAC, the Sun Belt, the MAC. What is in it for those 5 G5 commissioners to say, yes, we'll vote on it. Go ahead, change it. 6 plus 6 to 5 plus 7. I believe what's in it for them is long-term security. That they are making sure that they have playoff access for 2026 and beyond, whatever that next contract is. I think they have bettered their chance at least to secure their playoff future. So I don't believe when we talk about playoff access, I believe G5 is continue to hold on to playoff access in 2026 and beyond. Now, there's the elbows are already being thrown. We're going to be going through the rest of the article, but that's one part that I think has happened. The other part, where there's going to be a minimum, a requirement of a conference to have 8 members or more to be able to get an automatic berth, to have their conference champion be ranked in the top 5 conference champions. That conference have to have 8 or more. That, I think, is a deal that had to be made with everybody else, with Oregon State and Washington State. Washington State and Oregon State, they're going to be quasi-independent schools here, looking to get an at-large bid in the playoffs for 2024, 2025. They're not going to be part of a conference. They're going to be looked at as like a Notre Dame. But in return for them to acquiesce this change, I believe that Washington State and Oregon State are going to be paid as an Autonomy 4 school. They were in the past. I think they're going to be paid at least in 2024 and 2025 as an Autonomy 4 school, even though they're not an Autonomy 4 conference. They're going to get paid more than an SMU, for example. Anyways, let's get back to the rest of the article. I just wanted to stop there. There's a lot in here, but I believe those 2 new changes, going from 6 plus 6 to 5 plus 7, where you needed unanimous vote, I believe the G5 conferences had to get something out of that. And I believe it's long-term security in the playoffs, starting in 2026. Okay, but there is something else on the docket. Back to Ross Dellinger, Yahoo Sports article. It involves a school located just 250 miles from Houston. SMU, the latest Group of 5 program to elevate to the Power 5 next year, with its jump to the ACC, is at the heart of a college football playoff money fight. Right now they are. They are the canary in the gold mine, as we call this show. They are at the heart. The heart of the money fight is going to move off of SMU. It's going to move in other places. But right now, the fight is with SMU. SMU, the latest Group of 5 program to elevate to the Power 5 next year, in their jump to the ACC is at the heart of the college football playoff money fight. In the past, schools making the jump from Group of 5 to Power 5 also saw a leap in their distribution from the college football playoff. The difference in annual payout between G5 teams, $1 million, and P5 teams, $6 million, is substantial. Now, before we get on to the rest of this article, there's so much in here. That's why we had to do a lunchtime show, PATC, here Friday, January 5th. That P5 number of $6 million, that could be at $18 million, $20 million, $22 million. Started in 2026. So keep, if you're looking at $2 billion, somewhere between $1.5 billion and $2 billion, and the Power 5, the Autonomy 4 schools are getting 80% of that total pie, and it's split among themselves, you're looking at 16, 18, 20, 22 million, depending on the full amount of that big massive pie, the great gold rush of 2026. And then the G5 schools are going to be making 4, 5, 6 million each. I mean, this is one of the reasons why Delaware wanted to get into an FBS conference. This is one of the reasons why SMU made the jump, because eventually they're going to be making Autonomy 4 money payout starting in 2026. And this is one of the reasons why the G5 schools have pulled up the drawbridge on accepting FCS schools into the conference. It's a $5 million payout just to have the opportunity to get into a G5 conference coming from the FCS. However, after discussion among the playoff commissioners on November 9th, SMU did not garner the necessary support for additional revenue distribution. The issue has now been shifted to the commissioners' corresponding presidents at the CFP Board of Managers, the playoff's highest governing body made up of school president from each FBS conference in Notre Dame. If SMU gets the $6 million, right? If SMU gets the $6 million, not the $1 million, but if they get the $6 million, as they expected to get, that's $5 million more, $5 million less than what all the Autonomy 4 schools are going to get in the 2024-2025 payout. Now you might be saying, $5 million, what is that? How much is that? What is that? $100,000 less to each of these Power Autonomy 4 schools if SMU gets all $6 million? I'm telling you, that's the battle for this is about 2024, 2025. They're battling over a few million dollars in 24, 25. They're going to be battling over much more money in 2026. The Great Gold Rush. Multiple conference commissioners declined comment on the matter, as well as CFP Executive Director Bill Hancock. In a brief interview with Yahoo Sports, ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips expressed disappointment on the issue, but declined to elaborate on the details. SMU Athletic Director Rick Hart declined comment when reached this week. Because this was the deal. This was part of SMU's calculations. SMU wasn't going to receive less media dollars in total in joining the ACC because they were going to get a jump in playoff distribution. We talked about it on this show. But it looks like, well, I'm going to have to take the L. Probably everyone else will, but I will do it in public. It looks like SMU may not get a bump in playoff distribution money. That bump in playoff distribution money from $1 million to $6 million would have filled in nicely for SMU because they're not going to get any ACC money or very little of it. And they were, of course, going to lose the $6-7 million in media money they get from the AAC. But now they're going to be, looks like they're going to get playoff distribution money as a G5 school while competing in an Autonomy 4 conference while not getting Autonomy 4 conference media money. I don't believe that Rick Hart was expecting this. I don't believe Jim Phillips was expecting this. ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips expressed disappointment on the issue. SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey pointed toward the CFP's long-standing rules around modifications to revenue policies. You have to have a unanimous vote to alter revenue distribution and diminish somebody else's revenue. Sankey said, that's it. God. You all understand what's going on here? This is there's a long-standing rules of modification. You know, when the Power 5 conferences, when the Power 5 schools, the number of schools, they grew here in the last couple of years. I mean, Cincinnati became a Power 5 school. BYU, when it came to playoff distribution money, became a Power 5 school. A lot of people determined BYU as a Power 5 school, but they were not getting playoff distribution money as a Power 5 school. Houston became a Power 5 school, Autonomy 5 school. And UCF, their playoff distribution money jumped. SMU, they're not getting the unanimous vote. It doesn't look like it. Sankey is saying it. You have to have a unanimous vote to alter revenue distribution to diminish somebody else's revenue. SEC schools don't want to even lose $80,000 or whatever each of those schools would lose if SMU were to receive Autonomy 4 payout, playoff distribution payout. A formal vote is possible Monday among the 11-member CFP Board of Managers. We have a lot of stuff going on next week, everybody, so keep an eye on Peek Around the Corner. We're going to be following the convention, all this stuff. A lot of news is going to be breaking next week. And I'm very, very happy we're able to do this lunchtime PATC live show because we got to set the table here. We got to set the table. It's going to get real busy next week. So buckle up, brace for impact. A formal vote is possible Monday among the 11-member CFP Board of Managers following a scheduled gathering of the commissioners. CFP leaders could push the topic to another time or possibly reach a compromise by agreeing to grant SMU a portion of the Power 5 revenue. Maybe there's going to be a compromise. Maybe what is the other Power 4 schools going to get in return with this compromise? In many ways, this fight over revenue is a precursor. And this is the PATC money shot of this article. In many ways, this fight over revenue is a precursor to the looming money battle among the 10 FBS conferences, going to be 9, after the current CFP contract expires following the 2025 playoff. This live show we titled SMU is the Canary. They're not going to be the only one. They are the first one. SMU is the canary in the gold mine, not the coal mine. This is going to be much bigger than just about SMU. So people who are taking shots at SMU or people who are taking shots at the ACC in the chat room or with their phone calls late in the show, this could be about way more than just SMU. In many ways, this fight over revenue is a precursor to the looming money battle among the 9 FBS conferences after the current CFP contract expires following the 2025 playoff. The CFP's television contract with ESPN is what binds the leagues together under a previously agreed upon revenue distribution model. That 80%, 20%. The CFP is in the midst of negotiating a new television deal. And a new revenue distribution model is expected to start in 2026, at which point, presumably, SMU will be granted a full Power 5 payout. But there's more to it. For the next 2 years, however, the school, SMU, could be out $6 million that officials expected to receive. That includes the $1 million CFP share from the Group of 5, as that too is at stake because they're no longer in the Group of 5 as well. Their money is going to have to come out of the Autonomy 4 pot. During negotiations to join the ACC, the school committed to the conference under the impression that it would receive the full CFP funds. They believed it, ACC believed it. According to comments made by SMU officials in August, there was a recent precedent of such a guarantee. In 2022, the CFP voted to distribute full Power 5 payouts to the new Big 12 schools, UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, and BYU, all of them elevating from G5 to P5. We just talked about it. Again, I know a lot of BYU fans have always believed BYU is a Power 5 school. There were conferences that considered BYU as a Power 5 school when it came to their internal non-conference scheduling requirements. But when it came to playoff distribution money, BYU was not getting P5 payouts. They are now. This year they did. So did Cincinnati. So did UCF. So did Houston. But it doesn't look like SMU is going to get the full payout, full Autonomy 4 payout in 2024, 2025. Making the situation especially painful is the unique arrangement that SMU made with the ACC. Heavily motivated to be in the Power 5 and backed by a plethora of mega boosters, SMU agreed to accept no television revenue from the ACC in its first 9 years in the conference. That said, Schools officials expected to receive non-television ACC payouts that total at least 10 to 12 million annually, roughly half of which that would come from the playoffs. So, SMU is going to get some money from the ACC. According to the ACC bylaws, non-television money. They're going to get some of that. But they thought they were going to get $6 million in Power 5 playoff distribution money. Doesn't sound like they're going to get all that money. Without the playoff money, SMU's first 9 years in the ACC may generate annually roughly half of what it earned in distribution while in the American Athletic Conference. The money coming, conference payouts in the ACC may be half of what it was getting in the American Athletic Conference. Currently, now we've seen different numbers on this. We'll use the 460 million. That's fine. Currently, we've talked about it early on this show. Currently, the conference football playoff distributes $460 million annually. About 80% goes to the Power 5, 20% to the Group of 5. The Big Ten and the SEC swelling to 18 and 16 members for now, respectively, with arguably 8 of the top 10 most valuable brands in the sport, may urge for distribution model to further skew toward them as a new Power 2, a term widely used to describe college football's behemoth leagues. And we've been we've been talking about this for 2 years. Power 2, not in the sense that playoff access is going to be cut off. Not in the sense that the SEC is going to go it alone and create their own galaxy. Power 2, not in the sense that the Big Ten is going to create their own galaxy. Power 2, in the sense that they're going to want a different distribution model that would give the schools in those conferences more playoff money. That's going to anger a whole lot of people. It's going to anger a whole lot of people in the chat room with the phone calls. But we've been giving you a peek around the corner on this. This is going to be the battle that's going to be waged. And what leverage does SEC and the Big Ten have? Well, they'll have this whispering campaign. Sankey has already said it in public. The Big Ten hasn't said so much in public, but there's going to be this whispering campaign where, well, if we don't get what we want, we'll go it alone. Sankey has already said that previously. I believe the chances of that happen are incredibly small, but he's going to use that threat. He's going to use that threat. And ladies and gentlemen, people are always asking me, why did some of these SEC schools like Mississippi State, why did some of these schools agree to creating a larger SEC by taking on Oklahoma and Texas? Why, Greg, did the Big Ten, a lot of these schools, why did they say okay to USC, UCLA? And why did they further say okay? Why did Minnesota, for example, support Washington and Oregon? It's because, well, one of the many, many, many reasons, but this is one of them. It's because of this. It's because of this. Trying to create more value in your conference, more consolidation, and even getting more playoff distribution money than the schools in the ACC and the Big 12. This is the reason why. And I believe this is the reason why, like an Oregon State and Washington State can't seem to jump over the wall into the Big 10 or in the ACC as of now. And if they did, they would not get the same full share, just like SMU. Consolidation keeps happening. This is rough. This is very rough to listen to. I get it. But we're going to shoot it to you straight. I don't know. I do not know. Look, we talked to a lot of people here at Peek Around the Corner. We don't know where this is heading. But we always know, we've always known this was the battle, part of the battle. The battle between the Autonomy 4 conferences in the G5, the battle between G5 and FCS, bringing up the drawbridge, making it $5,000 to $5 million to get into a G5 conference. There's a lot of people consolidating their power, and the SEC and the Big 10 are going to do the same. They're going to try to do the same. Big 12 did it with the Pac-12. The ACC may implode. The Big 12 is waiting to eat at the table. And the SEC and the Big 10 are going to try to make it even more valuable to become a member of their conference. And of course, Florida State, North Carolina, Georgia, possibly Miami, possibly the Virginia schools. They're all looking at this as well. If there is more playoff distribution money for a Big 10 and the SEC, that is in their part of their calculations about the risk they're going to take in going to the courts. Now, I see there's a lot of comments in the comments section, and I would agree with a lot of it. But we have talked about this, and now Yahoo Sports is reporting on it. This, when I talk Power 2, this is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking Power 2 like there's going to be a 32-team, 48-team Super League. If that's going to happen, it's going to be many, 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 many years down the road. That is our strong belief at Peek Around the Corner. The SEC doesn't even want that. They truly do not want that. But a Power 2 in where the Big 10 and the SEC starts pushing their power around, their votes around, yes, this was going to happen. This was going to happen. The revenue battle is likely to be a hotly contested showdown, and one that could come soon. This is the great gold rush of 2026. We began talking about this in August of 2022. The CFP expanding to 12 teams starting next season is working towards a new lucrative television deal that may be necessitated a modified revenue distribution model as soon as this year. A new modified revenue distribution model. Maybe the Autonomy 4 conferences get more than 80% of the total revenue. Maybe they get 85%. Maybe the G5 has to settle for 15, or maybe they do get 20. Or maybe there's 3 levels of payment. SEC and the Big 10 is one level. ACC, Big 12 is another level. Maybe there's a couple of G5 conferences that get a higher playoff distribution than other G5 conferences. Maybe the new Mountain West Pac-12 conference is going to get more distribution money than, let's say, a MAC conference. Schools. The battle is going to be waged on so many different levels. So many different levels. The CFP leaders are expected to get an update on the TV negotiations next week. In other words, The negotiation to see what the total pie looks like. How much money is in that total pie. And then there's going to be a fight on who gets what. The great gold rush of 2026. Multiple potential suitors have presented before commissioners, including ESPN, Fox, NBC, Turner, and Amazon. ESPN owns the rights for the championship game, semifinals, and quarterfinals through the 2025 playoffs and gets first right to match in first rounds. See, ESPN owns the rights for the championship game, semifinals, and quarterfinals in 2024-2025 and gets the right to match in first round games. So, look, ESPN has a lot of power. Those other potential media partners, they're not all that keen in just trying to get first round games. So whatever the pot of money is in 2024, 2025, it's going to grow big time starting in 2026, the great gold rush. Because those media companies, the other media companies are going to get rights. They're going to go for it at least. Fox Sports is going to go for it to try to get championship games, semifinal games in the years beyond 2026. And finally, in the article, and then we'll get to your comments, and then we'll get to your phone calls. If the CFP does deny SMU's Power 5 funding, the association sets a moratorium on additional revenue for those schools elevating from Group of 5 to Power 5, a policy likely to even span into the CFP contract starting in 2026. The move is yet another sign that college leaders are attempting to restrict Division I's highest body from further expansion. That goes for those moving from FCS to FBS. For instance, the Division I Board of Directors increased the FBS entrance from 5,000 to 5 million. We talked about it. If you want to jump over the wall, if you're an FCS program, if you're North Dakota State, South Dakota State, Missouri State, if you're one of these programs that have looked to get into the FBS, you better jump over the wall now, and you better have $5 million. And once you jump over the wall, do not expect a full playoff distribution within the G5 schools because they're not going to give it to you. Not for years ahead. And the same thing is happening in the Autonomy 4 conferences. If you're going to jump in, if you're going to be able to get in like an SMU, you're not going to get full conference playoff payouts until at least 2026. And we are definitely going to see a battle here. But we may see different levels of playoff distribution money going to different conferences in the Autonomy 4 and in the G5. So that is what we needed to cover here at Peek Around the Corner lunchtime. I've been going on for an hour. This has been a long monologue. I want to get to your comments. Again, if you put a super chat, I'll get to it as fast as possible. Helmer Henderson, NIL and transfer portal help level playing field. Will Baker tilt things back to SEC advantage? Thank you for the super chat. I don't think Charlie Baker's proposal tilts to the SEC advantage. I don't see those proposals doing that. Because with student athletes being paid directly, of course SEC is going to be mighty powerful. They're going to continue to be the best football conference in the country, at least for now. But other schools, however they build their trust funds, They're going to be able to match, some of these schools are going to be able to match the SEC's ability to pay student athletes. So that's going to increase their ability to recruit. I don't necessarily believe that Charlie Baker's, now SEC schools have the advantage, they have a great advantage because first of all, they have great student athletes, recruiting grounds in that region, but they also have a money advantage, that big, massive TV money advantage over ACC schools, over the Big 12 schools. But Charlie Baker's proposal, that I don't think increases the SEC advantage. I think it gives some schools the ability, somehow, some way, to be able to compete because they're going to find ways to build a huge trust fund. In theory, Harvard could outpay anybody in the SEC for student athletes. If Charlie Baker's proposal passes, if Harvard chooses to do so, they could blow away Alabama. In other words, Harvard could pay out, if they choose to do so, Harvard could blow out anybody in the Big Ten and the SEC when it comes to payouts to student athletes. Thank you for the super chat, Helmer Henderson. Appreciate your continued generosity to the channel. Thank you so very much. Your mark will not let it happen. If the Big Ten grows to 24 teams, the top 12 will peel off to form a new conference. That will get even more playoff money. Stephen McNeely. Patrick says, anything's possible. From what I'm hearing, the Big Ten circles, the Big Ten leadership is hesitant to grow to 20 schools. The Big Ten has always planned to go to the Southeast next after the addition of Washington and Oregon. The media partners might be a little hesitant. The media market is tight. The Big Ten schools would gladly take a couple Southeastern schools. That's always has been their plan. We'll see what happens. We're going to open up the phone lines right now. That was a long monologue, but that was a big time article. We had to get through it. It's important. 763-260-1333. The phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. I see a lot of people saying that your mark would never agree with the Big Ten and SEC getting more money, playoff distribution money per school than the Big 12. He probably would fight against it. Maybe he would succeed in fighting against it. Maybe the Big Ten and SEC don't succeed. Or maybe with the ACC implosion, if it happens here soon, everything's tied together, ladies and gentlemen. If that happened, maybe there is a wink and a nod to Brett Yormark. Maybe he would gladly accept it just because the Big 12 is going to be making more than whatever remains in the ACC.
Call from
JD.
JD, Mr. Seminole, the floor is yours. How you doing, sir?
Good, sir. How about yourself?
Doing good. Doing good.
I was just going to be a listener today, and I wasn't going to call in. And I was driving down the road listening to your monologue, and it cut out there for a second. So I wanted to – this was a little more than I could put in the chat. so you'll kind of humor me here. Did you say that SMU was expected to get $6 million and they're only projected now to get $1 million?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
now there might be a compromise. Maybe they'll get a little bit more than $1 million, but they're not getting the as of now. Okay, we're going to learn more on Monday. But according to this article, they did not get the support needed. It doesn't look like they're going to get the $6 million that a Florida State would, that a Georgia Tech would, in playoff distribution money. Looks like they're going to still get $1 million like the G5 schools.
There's an underlying theme with that, and what is your opinion on that underlying theme? Because I think it has to do with Jim Phillips. But do you have an opinion on that? Because I'll be happy to share you mine.
My opinion is, and according to the article, Jim Phillips is surprised. I'm surprised. This is not. I didn't see any reports, JD. I didn't read any reports. Nobody told me. I believe we were all in the same boat. That we all expected SMU. This is part of the reason they jumped over the wall. They wanted to get to autonomy for a conference. They were at least going to make the same amount of money in conference payouts, joining the ACC, even without the media money, because they were going to get this playoff distribution uptick, right, from $1 million to $6 million. I think everybody's caught by surprise. I think they're the first casualty in the war of 2026. I don't know. What are your thoughts? How do you tie Jim Phillips into all this?
Jim Phillips has no political power inside the CFP.
I agree with that. Yes.
He has the ACC now is one step above the Pac-12, which saying something because they don't exist, and just barely. Okay, at some point, if I were Brett Yarmark, I would be lockstep in with Sankey and Petiti, the SEC, and you just start. You hope they bring you into that club, okay? Because if you try to be a Power 4, it's a lost cause. The Power 2 are going to shut you out. If there's a Power 3, they don't have to worry about being accused of collusion and other aspects. But you've created a voting block. Even if the Power 2 get a lion's share of the money, as long as the Big 12 or whatever their new name would be, whatever, or maybe it'll always be the Big 12. I don't know. Maybe they'll get 3/4 of what the other ones get, but they'll get a much higher amount, because listen to what was said. Jim Phillips was surprised. Well, he was surprised about the playoff snub, but I'm not going to make this about FSU. I'm going to make it a bigger picture ACC thing. The leadership is, I have to be careful. This is a family show.
Yeah.
The leadership is substandard. It is derelict of duty. They're like you said yesterday, they're always defensive. They're never proactive. They don't ever get out ahead of things. These legal terms about consideration keep getting thrown out. We have more examples today. The ACC is not proactive and forward-thinking, promoting their conference and doing the things they need to do for their member institutions. They sit back, they collect their checks, and then when something big happens, they're shocked. Well, let's go out and let's form a coalition with the with the Big 10 and Pac-12 and what was the name of that? What was that again? The Alliance.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, and the ACC was so proud of themselves. Oh, this is going to work out great. This is fantastic. And in the meantime, And I can't blame the Big Ten for looking out for itself and its future. And this is cutthroat business. And now you understand this is the status quo of the ACC. They are more concerned about the existence of the conference, as far as it's almost like the CEO and the board being more concerned about their existence than what's best for the member institutions or the employees. Okay?
Yeah.
It is, and I don't know.
I understand where you're going with it. It's
but it's and this isn't about FSU, your topic today, but it's just it sheds a much bigger picture about the growing power structure in college sports. It's just right there in front of us. It's what everybody said was going to happen. You've said this. You've talked about this for a long time. Yeah. I've been listening to your show since, sometime early summer.
Yeah.
And it's just the FSU plight is just a symptom of what's going on, And I don't know. I mean, I look at SMU. I don't know that I feel sorry for SMU, but at the same time, it does suck for them.
Yeah.
Because now, and it also does further explain why Stanford and Cal were so hell-bent in making sure they were still Power 5.
Yep. Oh,
because to fall down, I mean, what were you saying a minute ago that they could look at future payouts of over $20 million a school in the future?
I mean, it depends. Now, of course, it depends on the size of the pie, right? But if the size of the pie gets to $2 billion, I'm not saying it's going to. I don't know. Nobody knows. We're talking 2026. The pie in 2024 and 2025 is not going to get that big. So we're talking two different things. We're going to know the size of the pie for 24, 25. But then we're going to find out what it is in 2026 and beyond. I'm more focusing on 2026 because that's when that's what everyone's fighting over. If it's $2 billion, that's almost a 5-fold increase from what it is now. You're looking at $6 million per Autonomy for school. You could be looking at 18, 20, 22 million. We did a whole live show on this over a year ago. I had the blackboard up and behind me. I had it written all over the place, 80%, 20. We were talking about this for so long, trying to give everybody a peek around the corner to what's going to happen here, the fight that's going to happen. And here we are. Yeah, that's why schools have been trying to jump into the time. That's why Cincinnati, UCF, it was a big day for BYU, big day for Houston. And SMU, if the ACC can hold on, if they're still an Autonomy 4 conference beyond 2026, SMU is going to get the same amount or they're going to get an Autonomy 4 level type of payout. Eventually, this is about the news on SMU not getting the full payout is about 2024, 2025. Eventually, SMU would get the same amount as their brethrens in the ACC, if it still exists, beyond 2026.
Well, once the dam breaks, when FSU and whoever decides to leave, to me, it's in the best interest of the Big 12, of the SEC, and the Big 10 to add as many quality teams, as many teams that add enough value where, I forgot the terminology, but they more or less pay for themselves, and they add enough value to the conference where it's profitable to bring them, because the more you dilute the ACC, the less their future payouts will be.
Yeah.
And you might add an extra 5 or 10 million per school just by adding one school or one or two schools, or let's say 5 schools leave the ACC. It might still be a quote unquote Power 4 conference, but it is not going to get the same payout as the SEC and the Big Ten. It will not. And that's why I say I think eventually, I don't know your Mark or anything, and I don't know much of his history just from what I read. Big 12 people seem to be pretty fond of him, and he seems like a fighter. But, man, I would ally with the other two conferences and just more or less try to leave the ACC in the dust. I mean, because the conference is going to die anyway because the leadership is just deficient. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. But anyway, tried to make this not this or tried to not make this all about FSU today.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the phone call, JD.
All right, have a great day.
Have a good one. We talked about this when Oregon and Washington decided to join the Big Ten on a discount because that's the only way they were going to get in. But in the back of Oregon's and Washington's mind was the fact that they might be able to make some money, more money than the schools that they left in the Pac-12 because they were going to get a higher playoff distribution money being part of the Big Ten Conference. This was all part of the calculation. We don't know what the end result is. Big Ten, SEC schools may not make more than the Big 12 and the ACC schools. But as Yahoo Sports indicated today, and what we've been indicating for a couple of years, this battle is going to be waged. Everyone's going to be looking out for themselves. The Big 12 is going to be looking out for themselves over the ACC. All the autonomy conferences are going to be looking to get, maybe they're going to try to push that 80% of the total pie. In exchange for G5 conferences, playoff access from 2026 and beyond, maybe the Autonomy 4 conferences push for 85% of the total pie. Maybe they don't want to settle for 80%. Maybe they want to push it to 90%. We don't know. There's different layers to this. There's all different types of layers to the battle that's being waged for the great gold rush of 2026. This is why we coined the phrase. This is why we've been talking about it for the last 2 years. Everybody's jockeying for position. Everybody's trying to get the most out of their value. Paying players will get more and more expensive. Absolutely. Absolutely. Stephen McNeely, the SEC and the Big Ten, rationale is we deserve more money because we invest more money. Of course you invest more money because you get more money. Great comment from Stephen McNeely. Their rationale is going to be, because they've already used it before, is that, look, I'll put it to you this way, Stephen. The rationality of back in the day, in the last 12 years, last 10 years, of the 4-team invitational. The rationale of the Big 12, the ACC, the Big 10, the SEC, Pac-12, the 5 autonomy conferences, the Power 5 conferences, their rationale of grabbing 80% of the total pie was because they delivered the eyeballs. They're the ones that deliver the eyeballs. They are the ones that make the playoffs more valuable than the G5 schools. So they negotiated G5, Power 5, and this is what we get, right? We got 80%, 20% of the total pie payout. That rationale is going to be used for the SEC and the Big Ten. They're going to say, we bring the most value to the playoffs. Look at the Alabama, Michigan. Look at that rating. That's what they're going to use. They bring the eyeballs. They have the biggest fan bases, so we should get more money than the Big 12 and the ACC. And you know what? Maybe they don't get it. Maybe they don't get it. Maybe they get something else. There's always There's always stuff going on behind the scenes. Everyone's trying to better themselves. The Big 12 did it. The Big 12 did it, right? They went and poached the Pac-12. They got into the room. They are in the room. We talked about it. Brett Yormark assured the Big 12 institutions that they were going to be in the room to decide the future of 2026 and beyond. We'll see how much weight they've got, see what kind of, but they're going to be in a lot, look, the Big 12 schools are going to be in a lot better positions than most of the FBS schools. They're going to be level higher than most of the FBS programs in playoff distribution. We'll see if they are in the same with the SEC in the Big Ten schools. Well, I'm just, you know what? We here at Peek Around the Corner, we shoot it to you straight. Don't know how the result's going to be, though, on this. But the battle is being waged. Wait. Big 12 poached? That was Big 10 poaching. Big 12 just life draft for sunk in. Big 12 poached. Big 10 poached. Big 12 poached. Big 12 went after, and they need it, and it was the good move. I don't know. I wouldn't shy away from it. Big 12 poached before they got poached. Big 12 elevated the value of the conference, especially in the future, in the next media rights that they're going to have negotiations in 6 years from now. Most definitely. Yes, Big 12 did poach. They ate at the table of the Pac-12 after the Big 12, after the Big 10 did so. Same thing's going to happen in the ACC. So, Brett Yormark is going to stay aggressive. Phone lines are open, 763-260-1333. There's other news out there. DJ Legway, the 5-star recruit, Florida Gators, won the Gatorade Player of the Year, National Gatorade Player of the Year. So congratulations to DJ. And once we got off the live show last night, it became official. Will Howard has committed to the Ohio State Buckeyes. We have some more breaking news. The quarterback that I'm not able to pronounce, Maryland's quarterback, Tagovailoa, the Big Ten's all-time leading passer, just entered the transfer portal. He began his career in Alabama, would need to get an extra year approved by the NCAA to make a move for the 2024 season. The all-time Big Ten leading passer when it comes to yards has entered into the portal. He's looking for one more year. He's got to get an extra year approved. He'll probably get it approved because he had injuries, the COVID situation. He's looking for one more year NIL money. Holy smokes. So there's some breaking news for you during the lunchtime PATC. Helmer Henderson, who delivers more eyeballs, SEC or the Big Ten? The SEC has historically delivered more eyeballs. Now, the last couple of years, the Big Ten has gotten real close to the SEC. The Fox Big Noon ratings are just as high now as ESPN's Game Day. The Big Ten's Big Ten Network are rated by Nielsen. SEC Network games are not rated by Nielsen. That's a choice from the SEC. The Big Ten decided to do that because they wanted to raise their advertiser rates, and they have. The network continues to make more and more money. So because the Big Ten Network games are rated, that brings down the average of the rated games in the Big Ten versus the SEC. So you can't really compare the two conferences, even by looking at the average Nielsen rating, because the Big Ten games are lowered because the Big Ten networks are rated. They're in that pie of games being rated, while the SEC network games are not in the SEC's total average. So it's hard to say, but I would continue at this point. SEC brings a little bit more juice, a little bit more eyeballs, but the Big Ten has the advantage where they're making a whole lot of money in national advertisers love Big Ten content. So it's pretty close. It's gotten pretty close. Still would give the advantage to the SEC. Thank you so much for the super chat, Helmer. Appreciate it so very much. Again, the phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. SEC gets more Big Ten. When it comes to playoff distribution money, probably won't, but who knows? Maybe the SEC will. Look, Sankey has already said out in public. He's already said out in public. We'll create our own playoffs. Now, it sounds like Sankey and Petiti get along better than Sankey and Kevin Warren. I think the SEC would, I don't think the SEC, if they're going to go to battle, and I think they will, we'll see how long they go to battle with this, but if they go to battle and trying to get more, changing the distribution model, SEC is going to get more money out of it. I think they're going to battle with the Big Ten. I don't think they'll go it alone. I think they'll be more successful if they go with the Big Ten. But will the SEC argue that they should get more playoff distribution money than the Big Ten? I don't think it's going to happen, but it could. It could. Everyone's looking out for the best interest in this. Here's the thing, Patrick, and everybody else. This is a huge, massive amount of money. Massive. Look at from the G5 level. These schools are going to be making more money in playoff distribution money than they do with their media money throughout the whole season. This is a big deal. They're going to be injected millions of dollars, lifeblood into their athletic department to keep those programs going. And so they're doing all they can to limit. They don't want more G5 schools. They don't want their conferences to expand. If a school is interested in coming over, if they add potential long-term value to the conference, it costs them $5 million. And that gets spread out over to all the G5 schools. They're bringing up the drawbridge. And you see what's happening at SMU? Power 5, the Power 4 conferences are bringing up the drawbridge. So if everyone's doing this, of course, the SEC and the Big Ten are going to act the same way everybody else is. Are they going to be successful? I don't know. But this battle was always going to be waged. The great gold rush of 2026, this was always going to happen because there's so much more money in the pot. There's going to be so much more money than it is now. Stephen McNeely, early peak member. The college football playoff money is going to bring out the best of humanity. Greg, do you see the Big 12 starting its own network? Was somebody, Bo Stacker, someone's going to have to be the sugar daddy of that, right? Someone's going to have to build that with the Big 12. Who's going to do that? Is it going to be Fox? Is it going to be ESPN? It's not going to be ESPN. Would Fox be interested? I know they haven't been in the past, even with Texas and Oklahoma in the fold. I'm going to guess probably not. But if the Big 12, if the ACC implodes, Big 12, Brett Yormark might be looking at, look, might be looking at ESPN, the ACC network, becoming the Big 12 network? Possibly. That is a possibility. We shall see. Patrick, fine, we all get paid, but I'm sorry, P5, we're all the same distribution. Now you want P2 higher distribution. Sorry, but not carrying that I'm making more, but the gap only grows between the top two and us. Well, it hasn't happened yet. It might not happen. But we got to talk about that. That is part of the battle. A lot of different battles going on in the Great Gold Rush. We have to talk about that one. They might not succeed. Our web, ESPN has Big 12 tier rights, which usually what your conference network shows. ESPN is the conference network. Thank you, our web, for that comment. ESPN Plus is not really a conference network. Not in the same way that the ACC network is, the SEC network, the Big Ten network. I know they have the Big 12 now. I get it. Money, but the success of whatever is happening at ESPN Plus of the Big 12 content is not tied to how much money the Big 12 schools get. They get a flat fee. And the flat fee is barely enough to pay for their producing the content on Big 12 now on ESPN+. What the Big 12 schools have now is better than what they had before for many of the schools. Way more exposure for their third tier content. But in the ACC network, the subscriptions, the ad rates, all that is tied into the payment. ESPN gets their cut first, and then money goes to the ACC schools. Same thing with the SEC network. Big Ten network's a little bit different, but it's all tied into subscription and ad buys, rates. The ACC schools right now make a little bit less than Big 12 when it comes to conference payouts. The ACC schools make a lot less money in Tier 1, Tier 2 money than the Big 12 schools. But the ACC schools actually make a little bit more money in their Tier 3 rights, media rights, ACC networks over the Big 12 when it comes to their ESPN+. That's why I'm saying if there's an ACC implosion, if it scatters all over the place, if the Big 12 can take advantage, one of those assets that the Big 12 might be eyeing, wink, wink, nod, nod to the ESPN, would be that ACC network. Big 12 schools would much rather have a Big 12 network distributed by ESPN over what they have with ESPN Plus Big 12 now. It'd be more valuable to each and every school. We'll see what happens. Patrick, college football national inclusion is what makes college football playoffs so exciting. Sometimes people think they're cutting the fat, but actually have anorexia. And that is exactly what Oregon State and Washington State are saying right now. Right? They were cut. They were not taken in by the Big 12. They were not taken in by the Big 10. They have yet to be taken in by the ACC. They're losing out. They're losing out big time. Big time. Because of the actions of the Big 10, the ACC, when they took Stanford and California, SMU, and from the Big 12. So everyone's going to their self-interest, right? Everyone's consolidating as best as they can. Tony, Greg, after last night, do you have Gophers in the Final Four? Maybe the Gophers men's basketball team does not finish last in the conference. That's a strong possibility now after that win at Michigan. Gophers going to the NCAA dance. I still don't see it happening. Do you know, Tony, that the Gophers men's basketball team, they put it up there this morning. They have the lowest strength of schedule resume of all the Power 5 schools, Power 6 schools in basketball, and it's not even close. Congratulations on the win. Any road win in the Big Ten is fantastic for Minnesota in this era of their basketball, but they are a long ways away from getting into the dance. We'll see what happens, but it's a better team, no question about it. Better team, no question about it. The Big Lubbock Time Warner Discovery. Warner Brother Discovery per Tim Fitzgerald will be getting the men's basketball package in the next negotiations. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Warner Brothers Discovery is doing a lot of movement, doing a lot of stuff. Okay, hold on one second here. I tell you what, this breaking news on Maryland's quarterback, we brought it up earlier. Tagovailoa is in the portal. I mean, if he gets that extra year, where is he going? Who's going to get this cat? Where would he go? I mean, Miami of Florida is still looking for a quarterback. Miami Hurricanes, Ja'Cory Brown. I don't think Ja'Cory Brown's the answer at Miami. Would this guy be the answer? This is massive news. He's not the elite college quarterback. Yeah, he throws for a lot of yards. He does make a whole lot of mistakes out there. Not as good as his brother, obviously. But if he gets one more year, and he probably will on a waiver, could he be going to Miami? Is he the next Hurricane quarterback? Massive news. News I was not expecting. Holy smokes. Iowa? Potentially. Ty Thompson. Thank you, Jared Jones, for reminding me of that. Ty Thompson. I think he visited Iowa, or he was going to visit Iowa. I don't know if he ever made it to Iowa City. The big-time recruit, been playing at Oregon, been on the bench at Oregon. Ty Thompson, the quarterback. He committed to Tulane this morning. The Green Wave, Ty Thompson. So he's not going to Iowa. But you know what? You have Cade McNamara. He's coming back. I don't know if you do that to Cade. Miami would be interesting because his brother is at the quarterback, Miami Dolphins. Great point, Expedition Greg. Great point. T5 Terps is laughing at me because I got no chance of pronouncing the man's name. I'm just going to call him Tags. Tags has entered into the portal. Did that surprise you, D5 Terps? Did that surprise you? Tags, yes. Yeah, we're going to go with that. Tags. All signs pointing to Miami. His brother plays at Miami, yes. Very interesting. We knew it for a week. Okay. Flogs with the breaking news on tags. Where is he going to go, D5 Terps? Miami? They have yet to get a quarterback down there. He's good. Not great. Not a great deep ball. Give him time and he does well. Yep. And he can buy himself some time, which is important in college football. Tags can buy himself some time. Good quarterback. Not great. I don't know. Look, like MJ Morris. What is the expectation level at Maryland for MJ Morris? He's going to be their new quarterback. Interesting times at Maryland. Evan Stewart, the Texas A&M receiver, has been in the portal for a while now, is on a current visit and is apparently told Oregon staff he will be a Duck. Breaking news every day, almost every hour. Yes, Drake Lindsey, Arkansas, the state of Arkansas Gatorade Player of the Year. Drake Lindsey, the quarterback, this high school Arkansas Player of the Year. Where is he going in 2024? To our beloved Minnesota Golden Gophers. He's going to be quarterback QB3 as a true freshman. And hopefully he'll be ready in 2025. Hopefully he doesn't get poached from Minnesota after 2024. I don't think he will. I think he's pretty committed, but you never know. Bobby Petrino was hot after Drake Lindsey. Thank goodness he stayed at Minnesota. He signed up. Going to be probably already in classes January 5th or in a few days at least. Let's go Tulane. That is a nice grab for the new coach at Tulane. Yes, it is. Tulane gets Ty Thompson. Tua's better than anyone the Gophers got. Well, yes, you're correct. You're right on that. Oh, he's better than anyone the Gophers had. But we don't know. Troy, we do not know. Brax Mosmer, it's going to be announced Saturday night. The Walter Payton Trophy going to be handed out tomorrow night. That's the best FCS player in the country. It's the FCS Heisman winner is the Walter Payton winner. The top 3 finalists is the quarterback from South Dakota State, who probably win it, Gronowski. The running back from Monmouth, and the quarterback from New Hampshire Wildcats, Max Brosmere. He's one of the top 3 finalists. He's going to be the quarterback for the Gophers next year. He's already practicing. So we'll see. We'll see what we got here in Minnesota. But yes, Tags is better than anybody the Minnesota Gophers have had. No question about it. Jack Sawyer's coming back after that monster playoff game. Bowl game against Missouri. Wow. Is that breaking news? I did not see that. Did that break while we're on the... Holy smokes. Holy smokes. Let's play it.
Jack Sawyer.
It's gonna be there it is. Breaking news. Jack Sawyer, I'm back. Reload the clip. Massive news for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Wow. Jack Sawyer, a beast on the D-line is back for Ohio State. I was not expecting that. He would be drafted very, very high in the NFL draft. Buckeyes. Will Howard, Jack Sawyer. Man, oh man. 13 minutes ago. Big news. Big news. Huge news. Wow. Okay, we're going to shut it down here. I want to thank everybody for coming in for the lunchtime, PATC lunchtime live show. Big, big battle. The great gold rush of 2026. We're going to continue to cover this story. It's one of many, 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 many big stories going on in the college football world. And you know us here at PATC, College Football's Peek Around the Corner. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. So stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner. Before you leave our live show, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you liked our content. If you didn't like our content, hit the thumbs down button. Let us know in the comments section or on X with a post. Let us know how we can better serve you, the college football fan. From all of us at PATC to all of you, until next time, which could be real soon. From now, keep your head on a swivel until next time. From all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.